We've all held a pencil probably thousands of times. But have you ever really thought about it? I mean, this thing seems so simple, right? But its origin story is this incredible journey of chemistry, engineering, and just mind-boggling industrial scale. So let's pull back the curtain and take a little factory tour.
So what does it actually take to create one? Well, I'll tell you. The process is way more complex than you might think. We're talking about everything from super fine powdered minerals to thousands and thousands of pounds of industrial pressure.
And the scale? Just get ready for this. Around 14 times billion pencils are made across the world every single year. That's enough to circle the entire globe more than 60 times. It is a massive industry, all hiding inside this tiny everyday tool. To really get how they're made, we have to start at the very beginning with the raw materials. So let's kick off our tour by looking at a pencil's secret ingredients. Okay, first things first, let's just bust a huge myth right now. Pencil lead is not lead. It has never, ever been made of actual poisonous lead. That's a total misconception. The part you write with, it's really a very precise mixture of two things, graphite and clay. So the three main stars of the show are graphite, which is just a natural crystallized form of carbon, clay, which works as a binder and is super important, and of course the wood, which is usually incense cedar because it's stable and sharpens really nicely without splintering all over the place. And this brilliant combination was actually born out of a crisis. Back in 1795, France was in the middle of a war and couldn't get its hands on good graphite. So a chemist, this guy Nicolas Jacques Conté, discovered that if he mixed low-quality graphite powder with clay and then baked it, boom, he could create a fantastic writing core. It was a total game changer that we still use today. All right, so we know what's in it. Now let's see how that writing core is actually forged. This is where the heavy machinery and some serious heat come into play. The whole process is pretty intense. First, they take the graphite and clay and grind them in these huge drums until it's a powder, finer than flour. Then they mix that powder with water for up to 3 whole days to get this thick, goopy paste. That paste then gets squeezed through a tiny hole with extreme pressure, coming out in these long, thin strands. It literally looks like graphite spaghetti. And finally, those soft strands are baked in a kiln at over 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which turns them into that hard, smooth core we know. And this is the secret sauce. This is why you have so many different kinds of pencils. It's all about that ratio of graphite to clay. The more clay you add, the harder the pencil is and the lighter the mark it makes. Perfect for something like technical drawing. But if you add more graphite, you get a softer, much darker pencil, which is exactly what artists are looking for. I mean, just look at the numbers here. It's pretty wild. A super hard 9H pencil is actually more clay than it is graphite. Your standard everyday number 2 or HB pencil, that's about 68% graphite. And then you get to an artist's soft 6B pencil and it's a whopping 84% graphite. That precise formula really is everything. Okay, so we've forged the core. Now it needs a home. And the next stage of assembly is, well, it's best described with a really simple and kind of delicious analogy. We're going to make a cedar sandwich. And honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. You've got your 2 pieces of wood, the bread, and the graphite filling right in the middle. The entire process is built around making this perfect little sandwich. So here's the play-by-play. A machine takes a slide of cedar and cuts these perfect little grooves into it, usually 8 to 10 of them. Another machine squirts glue in, and then the graphite cores are laid in each groove. Then a second grooved and glued slat gets placed right on top, and voila, you've got your sandwich. The whole block is then clamped down with over 2,000 pounds of force while the glue dries. So now we've got these solid blocks, these sandwiches of wood and graphite, but they're not pencils yet. Now comes the really cool part, the moment of magic, turning this one solid block into a whole bunch of individual pencils. And this is just the best part. From this one single, carefully made block of wood and graphite, you get up to 10 perfect pencils. It is an incredibly efficient way to do things. So how does it happen? Well, that sandwich block gets fed into a shaping machine. And in a blur, these super high-speed cutters with precision knives slice down, carving the wood exactly halfway between each graphite core. So in one single motion, the machine both separates the pencils and gives them their shape. And you know that classic hexagonal shape? That's no accident. It is just a beautifully simple piece of design. The flat sides make it comfortable to hold, and maybe most importantly, they keep it from rolling right off your desk. Simple, but absolutely brilliant. At this point, we have a raw, unpainted pencil. I mean, it works, but it's not finished. It's kind of naked. So it's time for the final stage. Think of it as the pencil's makeover, where it gets its familiar look and all its final features. First up, the pencils get a bunch of coats of lacquer. We're talking anywhere from 4 to 10 coats. Then, the brand name and the hardness grade are stamped on. And finally, a machine crimps on the ferrule. That's the little metal band, and pops in the eraser, securing it in place. The whole shebang. And speaking of that paint job, have you ever just stopped to wonder, why are so many pencils yellow? Of all the colors in the world, why that one? Well, there's actually a really fascinating historical reason for it. Believe it or not, it all comes down to some seriously smart marketing. Way back in the late 1800s, the absolute best graphite in the world came from China. And in Chinese culture, the color yellow is associated with royalty and respect. So, pencil manufacturers started painting their pencils yellow to send a message to customers, hey, this is the good stuff, the high-quality products. And the tradition just stuck. So, let's just quickly recap this wild journey. You start with raw minerals and logs. You forge them in fiery ovens and squeeze them with tons of force. You assemble them into a perfect little sandwich, carve them into shape, and then finally give them a paint job, a name, and an eraser. It's a truly remarkable transformation. So, really, after all of that, the next time you just casually pick up a pencil, are you ever going to look at it the same way again? You're not just holding a piece of wood and graphite. You're holding a tiny, everyday marvel of industrial history and precision engineering. Thanks for coming on the tour with us.